The Togolese government says it is opening a new chapter, expanding partnerships between the United Kingdom and Francophone Africa as the country leverages its position as a growth corridor linking key markets. Hello there and welcome to this focus on the fourth forum on trade and investment between the UK, West and Central Francophone Africa. I'm David Alabi. For the first time ever, the forum holds on African soil in Lomé, Togo, at the heart of a region undergoing transformation. Togo's council president, Fora Yasingbe, opens discussions with a clear charge on the need to break barriers and build bridges for shared prosperity between the UK, West and Central Francophone Africa.
With our deep sea ports, our pro-investment reforms, our political stability, our country has become a genuine gateway between Africa and the world. But beyond ambition, what we now need to build is a shared vision. This is what this forum can help build. Let us break down linguistic and economic barriers to raise bridges and prosperity between the UK and the Francophone Africa.
Country sessions and sector roundtables focus on turning opportunities into action. A major highlight of this year's forum is an MOU signing between Togo and the UK Export Finance with a $350 million deal covering agriculture, human capital development and digital economy. Other deal room outcomes include a €62.5 million financing agreement for rural electrification with the Deutsche Bank. His Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Africa acknowledges the continent is home to some of the world's fastest growing markets, and the forum is a platform to deepen partnerships, drive inclusive growth and unlock the potential of UK-African collaboration.
You know, for the last 3 years, we've been running the Francophone Forum, Western Central African Francophone Forum, and really it's been a huge success in London. But it really felt like, actually, we're doing this in London, we should really be doing this in the region. Obviously, Togo, Lomé, centrally placed, very well connected with the rest of the region, member of the Commonwealth. So really, I think, gave us a sort of natural forum for that. And I think it's been a huge success. I mean, we're only at the end of the first morning, but just in terms of the number of people of registrations, we actually had to close registrations for delegates when we got to about 1,000 people. So, I mean, you know, it's really a sign, I think, of the growing relationship between the UK and, if you like, not our traditional partners in a way. You know, Francophonie wouldn't necessarily automatically look to the UK, but you can see that relationship really growing.
And now let's talk about contextualizing the volume of engagements, investments recorded so far. It's about 3 years down the line. Walk us through the highlights of engagement, the areas of priority sectors that have been beneficiaries, and what this means when we're looking at this forum serving as an incubator for further transformative growth.
Well, maybe I'll start with the last part of your question, really, which is where forums like this really do act as an incubator. What they do is they allow people to make connections, they allow business people to meet business people, but also they enable those government-to-government conversations. And our job is obviously to sort of try and sort of create the framework for business. And I think you can really see that in the results. So we don't sort of measure directly what comes out of the forum on its own, because actually it's part of a wider campaign, and there are trade missions and everything else going on around it. But in terms of our overall trade in this area, in this part of the world, it is growing significantly. So, for example, in Côte d'Ivoire, last 4 quarters, our trade exceeded 1.2 billion. Our trade with Senegal, our bilateral trade, is also over £1 billion. You can see strong growth in other markets, even though they might be smaller, like Guinea and others as well. So I think for us, generally, it's leading to strong growth. And I think I'm a business person, and I think momentum is what it's about. You create momentum and it takes on a life of its own, and it feels like that's happening.
And talking about what's happening right now, let's also look at the key priorities for the UK government and how this also ties with the regional concentration we have here.
Yeah, so if you think about what the UK is really strong at, you know, things like healthcare, you know, education, you know, there are creative industries. There's a lot of areas that the UK is very strong, which actually relate directly to needs within an African context. You know, many countries in Africa have significantly growing populations, education, healthcare, the sort of basics, renewable energy, infrastructure. All of those things are the sort of, if you like, the fabric of growing economies. So I think there's a really good fit between what the UK has to offer and what the need is in an African context.
Okay, and talking about the African context, it's also important to look at the fact that we have growing protectionist stance and then this whole geopolitical shift at this moment. But how is the UK positioning differently from other trading partners, the likes of the EU, China, and the United States of America?
Well, I can't really speak for those comparisons, but what I can say is that the UK is very committed to free trade and multilateralism. And in the context of Africa, we were the first country outside of Africa to sign an MOU with the AFCFTA. We have the UK's Developing Countries Trading Scheme, which actually provides tariff-free access for many African markets into the UK economy. So I think certainly the UK is not building barriers.
A sit-down with Togo's Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources highlights the country's reforms as catalyst, positioning Togo as a trade and investment destination of choice, while noting the relevance of the MOU signing with the UK Export Finance in securing fresh capital flows into key sectors.
What this MOU will change, it's a framework, it's an agreement. We agree on something that will be put later on substances and financing, to be mutually beneficial toward all the parties of this MOU. So you have seen that during the signing, there was a lot of UK, there was a trade representative, and there was also UK bodies in charge of international cooperation, development, and investment, and so on and so forth. So it's an agreement to deepen this relationship and to go further. And having it hosted in Togo, it means that it will have more, resonance, it will have more importance than even the first three forum where we did participate. So that's what this MOU means, because we didn't sign any in the first three forums.
Okay, let's talk about the journey ahead now when we're looking at energy security, reducing import dependency. What's Togo's strategy?
Okay, basically we want to reduce import dependency, not because we don't want to collaborate. We just need it to be able to have a supply of electricity, again, that makes investor confident in the country. You cannot bring industries in the country when half of your electricity coming from outside. So you need some sort of, we are not talking about total sovereignty, cutting every corner, cutting every link to other, but we are talking about having not sovereignty, but I will rather say security. Let's say you have 80% of your day-to-day what you have to do, and when you have peak, you draw on your friends, your colleagues, the other countries on your borders. But you cannot base your industrial development in borrowed industries, in borrowed energy, in terms of electric energy. So we need to have some sort of security, some level of security, so that people who invest in industry can be, let's say, assured that there will be enough supply.
And talking about adequate supply for the local market and even looking at the bigger picture of the regional integration at this moment, I'd like to have you speak on specifics when we're looking at grid-connected solar and then wind opportunities. What's the investment strategy there? How are you also positioning? And then even the bigger picture of rural electrification.
Okay, in terms of renewables, everybody's going,
yes,
let's say, ballistic on solar, PV. So we have solar, we have people, we have projects under development for solar. But the hydroelectric, which could be a good part of us, of our energy mix in terms of renewable, takes more time, is more capital intensive, and you may have a lot of issues regarding environment, You can have an endangered species and everything. So let's say people do not want to get involved in that, and you also have a lot of people, people moving around. You have to move people to make way for the reservoir. So in this case, I can see that the international financing institution are a little bit worried to get involved in this kind of maybe issue that may come around.
And lastly now, we've had the performance of the year 2025. We're already in November, wrapping up the year gradually. What does the near-term target, 2026, electricity generation, what other announcements should we expect in 2026?
In 2026, we are embarking in a tender for 400 megawatt peak of solar, and you could expect it to be revealed by H1 2026, and then the life of this will go on, and especially in solar PV, the development is 18 months, so we will expect to the bid to be successful and attribute 400 megawatt peak of energy solar PV in 6 months. So it means that by the end of 2027 we have 400 more. So it means that whenever you have 1 megawatt peak of intermittent, you need at least the equivalent in base, or at least in storage, battery storage. So we also have a program, a battery energy storage system, and we also we want 150 megawatt hour of battery of BESS that we also go on tender next year, concomitantly with the 400 megawatt peak.
The two-day event wraps up with a re-echo of President Faure Gnassingbé's message on the need to not just invest only in traditional infrastructure, but also in the frontiers of Africa's growth. That is, the green economy, local processing of critical raw materials, digital finance, and even creative industries. Well, this brings us to the end of this focus on the 4th Trade and Investment Forum between the UK, West and Central Francophone Africa. Many thanks for watching. I'm David Alabi.